rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective with yours truly, Rick Thomas. Hope everybody had a great weekend. I know, Friday and Saturday, didn't have a show, but here I am. We're back on Monday. We're ready to go, and let me just say that the weekend was quite eventful. In terms of the fact that just a lot of activities going on, between the dance recital and the two shows on Friday and Saturday. And then, of course, Sunday, we had a graduation party for my daughter, ironically at the dance studio. The party was great. Thanks everybody for who you're watching, who came and joined. It is very, very thankful. Just moving on to the next chapter of life. And that makes things, it's sad, but it's kind of bittersweet, happy, but sad at the same time. For those of you who are fathers and mothers who have had kids that have left the nest and progressed in their lives, you'll understand a little bit of what I'm talking about. All right. Now, this week, or at least up until the 1st of July, we are expected to get some serious legal opinions. That's right, legal opinions. Coming from SCOTUS and also from Judge Eileen Cannon. People haven't been talking about this, but she actually had a hearing, a very important hearing, Friday and today. And I'll go into that as well as the SCOTUS stuff, along with a couple other items that are hanging out there with regards to, current events that are going on this year. This week, have gone on the last couple of days that I've been off and gone. So we'll get things started and kicked off here, though, with the Pledge of Allegiance, as we always do. Tonight's Pledge of Allegiance will be recited by Ms. T of Texas over on Rumble. And she will go ahead and lead us in that. So please, if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hats, place your hand over your heart, and join with us, and being led by Ms. T of Tex, in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and thank you very much for that submission, Ms. T. Apparently, somebody is saying I'm not live on Rumble. I am live on Rumble. I am live on Rumble. I should be. There's the link over on Facebook. So I don't know why I wouldn't be live on Rumble, but that's the link over in Facebook. I should be. It's just really odd because I see myself on Rumble. But anyway, all right, I was wondering why I didn't have all my normal Rumble miscreants over there. They weren't showing up. So hopefully Bonnie can get people in, or at least get things going. So Bonnie, it's in there. Bon. Hopefully you guys can pick it up, but it should be there. Unless I made a mistake and put it under the wrong name, but I don't think so. That's interesting. Well, there's the link. The link is in the Facebook chat. Oh, I see what happened. Okay. I see what happened. Hold on. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to end that. Okay, I know why. We're going to end that. And let me get that restarted here. So let's do this. Give me just a second, folks. Just a second. Gotta fix a problem. Yeah, we'll just leave it like that. Let's see if it's saved there. Nope, it did not. All right. I'll fix all that later. Just get this up. Bear with me for just a moment here, folks. Just got to get the Rumble side up. Apparently, it didn't stream, or it wasn't on my channel page. Let's go ahead and kill that. Let's go here. Oop. I don't want to remove the channel. Hit the settings. And see, this is why you need to have a producer, because the producer can do this stuff in the background. But yeah, not happening here. I don't have a producer, so I have to do it all myself. And in this particular case, it's setting up for... Now let's see if this will pop on here. See if that'll come up to everybody. That also means I need to get rid of this. So let's see what happens here. No, it's going... It's Rumble's having problems. That's why. Yeah, Rumble is having problems. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here as far as that goes. Well, yeah, Rumble's not letting it go to the, we'll see if they pop in here, if the Rumblers pop in. Hopefully it'll show up. Anyway, all right, let me get back to where I was going. So we did the Pledge of Allegiance. So tonight, I want to tell you tonight's promotion, of course, is going to be these wonderful shirts that I wear. They are guaranteeing delivery for the 4th of July if you get your delivery in by the end of this week. So make sure you head on over to theflagshirt.com and get your shirt or other apparel or other accessories set up for Independence Day by the end of this week. So do that as soon as you can. Head on over to theflagshirt.com, because if you don't get it in by the end of this week, they can't guarantee delivery for regular service. So head on over to theflagshirt.com, put in your order for those patriotic clothing apparel line, something like what I wear here. And you can go ahead and do that. Plus, I also can get you a $5 off coupon code at flagshirt.americanperspective.online. You can go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online and you can get yourself a code that you put in at checkout in the promo code box at checkout to get $5 off your order. That's flagshirt.americanperspective.online to get a $5 off coupon code that you put in at checkout in the promo section at theflagshirt.com. Go to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. And I have a feeling people are like hitting me up on X and stuff trying to tell me that they can't see me. Nope. Just a bunch of people doing it over on Messenger. Let's see. Yeah, that was Bonnie. Bonnie's got that. All right. So I see definitely not Karen made it in to the live chat. Hopefully the rest of the folks will get in there soon enough. So, yeah. So, lasted for about 10 minutes and then it isn't on now. It should be. You guys, it should be on. You guys need to, I know. I started it and then it didn't. Rumble's having some issues. Rumble's having some serious issues. So here's the link for the Rumble that's running, that should be running right now. So there's the link for the Rumble that should be running right now. So if you want to head over there, you can, but that should be the link. And I know it's like showing up in the Facebook. Rumble's been having some issues today, so just be aware of that. All right, let's get into the show. I can't spend more time on this at the moment. So let's go ahead and get into the show. Let's get talking. So first of all, we all know that the debate is coming up. Big debate. Everybody's got a lot riding onto it. And it's absolutely amazing that, you know, so many people are putting so much emphasis on this. And of course, we know that Donald Trump, you know, if he comes in and does a really good job, and Biden just shows up and stays vertical and is breathing, the left will claim Biden's victory. And that's just par for the course. They're trying to prop up the old geriatric guy in the White House for another run, even though everybody pretty much knows that he's oatmeal brains, can barely put a sentence together, even when shown stuff on a teleprompter. But that being said, even some people in Congress are not convinced that Joe Biden is fit for the office of the presidency. And they are suggesting that he get a drug test before the debate with Trump. And for an example, this is in the Washington Examiner. There we go. Ronnie Jackson, who is a doctor. He actually is a medical doctor. There's quite a few, actually. I didn't even realize it, but there's quite a few medical doctors in Congress. I think there's over 40 in total, which to me, that seems like a large piece. I mean, the majority of those folks are like lawyers or political pundits or something. I don't know. But anyway, most of them are actually idiots and morons, but still. Ronnie Jackson has demanded now that Joe Biden submit to a drug test before and after his debate with Donald Trump. Now, the fun thing about this, or the fun thing I should say about this, is that once Donald Trump heard about this demand, which Donald Trump's been attempting to get a drug test on Biden, because as he pointed out at one of his rallies this weekend, was that, you know, they're going to let him go back, be backstage, and he's going to get a shot in the butt, and then he's going to come out and, you know, again, look like he's a animated corpse, you know, like Weekend at Bernie's. But the fun thing is that Donald Trump has been like, hey, if you want to get tested, then go ahead. Let's get tested. And he's like, I'll admit, you know, I'll be tested as well. It looks like the Rumblers are coming in now. They're starting to get over there. So Rumble has been having problems all day. I know that earlier they announced that they had some issues that they were looking at, but I didn't see any sort of a resolution for it. So I apologize for that. But now I'm starting to see some of the Rumblers pop in over on the Rumble app. All I can tell you is that I tried to get it to transmit or beam to the channel. It would only go to my local account, which is the Whiskey Musings account. And yeah, it's just they're having some problems. So you're going to have to get it. You're going to have to get it on the PC, I think it is what everybody is kind of saying. So and you'll also have to look it under my old Whiskey Musings account. Apparently they're just having some troubles. I just don't get it. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. So Ronnie Jackson is just like, hey, he needs to get tested. And Ronnie Jackson has been talking about this since at least the State of the Union speech. And he essentially said here he was talking on Fox News' Sunday morning with Maria Bartiromo. And Ronnie says, I'm sending a letter to President Biden, to his physician, Dr. O'Connor, and I'm CCing his entire cabinet. And it's embarrassing that I have to do this. It's really embarrassing as a former White House physician to have to do something like this. But we don't have any choice based on what's going on. But I'm going to be demanding, on behalf of many millions of concerned Americans right now, that he submit to a drug test before and after this debate, specifically looking for PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs. Because we've seen recently in his State of the Union address that there was a Joe Biden that came out that was not similar at all to what we see on a day-to-day basis for the last 3.5 years. So the question is definitely going to be, what Joe Biden are we going to get? Well, we will find out soon. We will find out soon because the debate is on Thursday. And my understanding is it's going to be 9 p.m. Eastern. So I will try and do a special show where I'll start off at my normal time at 5 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. or 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And then we'll just move into watching the debates. I will try and restream or re-simulcast or whatever terminology they use for that to happen. And I'll try and do that Thursday and provide some color commentary during the commercial breaks so that you guys don't have to watch the commercial breaks. I think that would be a good idea, don't you? But anyway, so that's what's going on for the debates. They're fighting over, or well, at least right now, they're fighting over whether or not they're going to have drug tests. Now, one thing that did come out, which was kind of interesting, and I don't know if anybody has noticed this, but a couple of pundits, a couple of the opinion shows have been talking about this. Jake Tapper, who I believe is one of the moderators, has come out and mentioned to the American public that Snopes has finally corrected their fact check. Now, keep in mind, Snopes is a left-wing organization. They don't fact check, they opinion check. And they have finally adjusted their fact check on the Charlottesville situation. You remember how Donald Trump was attacked for saying that there were very fine people on both sides, and that the left, which is still, I mean, they still believe this thing. I don't even understand how they believe this thing, but Snopes has apparently retracted that and turned it into into the fact that no, Trump was not referring to the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, that he specifically stated that he wasn't referring to them. And so the very fine people on both sides hoax, which we all knew was a hoax, is now been even debunked by Snopes. But don't fall into a trap with that, as Dan Bongino talked about earlier today. Don't fall into a trap with that, because the reason why they're doing that is they're essentially sending out a warning signal to Joe Biden's team. Don't even bring that up during the debate, because we now know that it's, which those of us on the right knew from a long time ago. But we now know that the left has finally accepted the fact that that is a hoax. Now, I'm just trying to figure out how many hoaxes we can prove to be true or not true. And the left can't quite figure out that they're completely in the wrong on a lot of this stuff. But that's more of their brain children's not functioning than ours. So anyway, a opinion came out last week, shifting gears here. The opinion came out last week from SCOTUS that may provide some ammunition for Donald Trump's Manhattan NDA money, because it's not hush money. It was NDA money in his appeal. And I didn't really think about this. I kind of did, but I didn't really think about this at the time. However, this is definitely something that that could apply in. Actually, I think it could actually apply in the in this particular case, as well as in the Bragg case as too. The Engoron and Letitia James case as well. Not the Bragg case, but the Letitia James case with the what was it? The tax thing and overvaluing his properties. And I can't think of what it is, but anyway, I'm vapor lock. But this came out in the National Pulse, and this actually is is quite interesting from the standpoint that the United States Supreme Court issued a ruling on Friday during Erlinger versus the United States, which could also have implications for President Donald Trump's appeal of the verdict in the Manhattan NDA case, and also in the January 6th rioter prosecutions. So in Erlinger, the court reaffirmed that a jury must be unanimous in its findings on a criminal conviction. Now, remember, in the Bragg case, Judge Mershon said that all he has to do is, or all the jury had to do, was find him guilty. It didn't matter what the charge was. All they had to do was find him guilty on any one of the 34 counts, and it would be considered a unanimous decision, which is not true. And so now that this has been issued, where juries must be unanimous in its findings on a criminal conviction, even on underlying predicate crimes. So this means that the jury, according to this decision, the jury in any case, they all have to come to the same unanimous conclusion across all charges in order for somebody to get convicted. Now, additionally, according to the piece, the justices ruled that judges cannot arbitrarily impose sentence enhancements on convicted defendants, and that judges cannot issue sentences for crimes beyond those of a jury that unanimously convicts. Now, while this doesn't directly intervene in the Alvin Bragg's prosecution, it does open the question of the merit of the prosecution for Trump's appeal. So what this does, just to kind of break this down a little bit easier for you, is that it essentially makes it so that Judge Mershon's instructions to the jury were essentially unconstitutional, according to SCOTUS. That him saying that, well, you guys don't have to come to a conclusion on any one given crime. You just need to conclude, like he was saying, the 4-4-4 situation, which you might recall if four of the jurors decided that he was guilty of this crime, which would be covering up or conspiracy to cover something up, and then these four decide that he's guilty of, business alter records, but they didn't really think that it was covering up the election, that would okay. And then the other 4 would show up, and it would be a 4-4-4 rule. You would end up with a unanimous decision at that point. Well, guess what? That's not happening. So, yeah. That's going to be interesting to see when it comes back in the appeal. So we could be looking at a possibility that this 34 convictions that he's been convicted of wrongly will probably get overturned on appeal, even just from this by itself, given what Judge Merchan did in the idea of what's happening. And Amy's asking over on Rumble is everybody over on Facebook. I think what it is that they can't get in. They're having problems getting in. So I think you and Mama, Five Kitties, and Coco Dominky are like the only ones, and definitely not Karen, are the only ones that seem to have shown up in the chat over on Rumble. So I think everybody's just having a hard time with Rumble tonight. So anyway. So Bam is now in. I have no idea. Rumble is having problems, and Bonnie is reporting over on Facebook that she can't get in at all. So Rumble is having all kinds of issues tonight, folks. I'm sorry about that, but that's the platform, and there's nothing I can do at this moment. You'd have to go. You'd have to maybe try going and searching through my personal account, which would be Whiskey Musings. There, you might find a live link there, yeah, so you might be able to find a live link there. I only have it titled episode 344-big. That's it. I didn't really finish because I wanted to get it live. So there you go. And speaking of the U.S. Supreme Court, they still have 6, at least according to the Epic Times, they still have 6 blockbuster rulings still to issue. Now, I know, Amy is saying she clicked on the link in the Facebook chat. So the chat that I put in Facebook is the link. So you should be able to hopefully get over there. But anyway, the U.S. Supreme Court still has 6 blockbuster rulings to issue. Now, I know the one that everybody seems to be waiting with bated breath for is the immunity case. But don't forget the January 6th obstruction charges, which could potentially release over 300 January 6th individuals who were convicted over there or regarding the January 6th obstruction of an official proceeding situation. So those 2 are like my top 2 that I'm keeping an eye on and waiting with bated breath for. Obviously, that's the big one, or those 2 are the big ones in terms of direct connections. So, yeah, so there we go. Federal agency power is another one, which is taking down the 40-year doctrine known as the Chevron doctrine. Now, that one, I'm going to tell you, that one comes up as a very quick third for me, just because of the fact that, pretty much what's been happening is the federal government has the bureaucracies, and the way that the Chevron doctrine, and no, it doesn't really have anything necessarily to do with Chevron, the company, but the Chevron doctrine basically was that under the 1984 doctrine, the U.S. courts gave leeway to agencies such as the EPA and the Securities and Exchange Commission regarding the powers delegated to them by Congress to administer the law. So in other words, what they've done is they essentially said that if the law is vague and not very clear, it's up to the regulatory agencies to interpret what the law actually says in order to decide how and what powers those regulatory agencies have. And that seems a little backwards to a lot of us who are strict to the Constitution which essentially says that, hey, Congress is the only body that can make laws, and the executive has to enforce them. If the executive can't figure out what the hell is going on with the law, it needs to go back to Congress and get fixed. That's how it should work. But since 1984, the courts have essentially been like, well, the regulatory bodies are actually the de facto standard for the cases and for the expert opinions on all of this. And in this particular case, two small fishing companies challenged that precedent, claiming that paying for a monitor on a herring boat required by the National Marine Fisheries Service amounted to onerous regulation. And so hopefully the Supreme Court will overrule the Chevron doctrine and make it, and this will change, believe me, this will change a lot of stuff, because even right now, there are a lot of three-letter agencies that are playing with a lot of latitude when it comes to applying and looking at laws and things like that. So, yeah, it's going to be kind of fun to see that one. All right, now I've already talked about the Trump media case. Well, here's another one and there's two of them actually under social media. So this one here is, this is deciding whether or not the federal government officials should be broadly prohibited from communicating with social media companies. And essentially, this is based off of lawsuits by two state attorneys general alleging that the federal government violated the First Amendment rights by asking social media companies to take down content that it claimed was false or misleading. And this one's very important to us, obviously. And so now, and this one has to, let's see. So this one is dealing with the appeals or court of appeals issuing a decision that blocked officials in the FBI, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, in the Surgeon General's office, the White House, and other agencies from contacting social media firms. But the Supreme Court said, okay, well, that decision's on hold while we figure out whether or not this is actually a violation of the First Amendment. We also have the other social media, which was dealing with laws in Texas and Florida that are regulating bans on social media. And this is also one that's going to be decided during the Supreme Court's term. You'll remember that after the whole thing with taking down supposed misinformation, they went ahead and Texas and Florida said, okay, well, we're going to start regulating you. And so that's what this case is particularly all about. Like I said, these are kind of a following close 4 and 5, honestly. So we also have an abortion case. Now, this is different from the abortion-related drug that was ruled on, where a doctors group challenged the Food and Drug Administration's approval of mifepristone. I think that's how it's pronounced. But anyway, the High Court is set to release an order on whether or not emergency rooms in Ohio are allowed to perform abortions on pregnant women as long as it's described as an emergency. Now, under 2022's Idaho Defense of Life Act law, abortion is banned under all circumstances unless it is necessary to prevent the death of the pregnant woman. The Biden administration challenged that, and saying that it conflicts with the federal law, the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, which mandates that an emergency room doctor must stabilize patients. So this one's going to be interesting only because of the fact that you have a conflict between between the federal government and the state laws. Now, I'm actually, on this one in particular, I go back to the whole idea that it's not part of Article 1, Section 8. in the Constitution, which pretty much covers just about every healthcare service that there is available in the Constitution. Therefore, that falls to the 10th Amendment, which means that the 10th Amendment states that if it's not specifically in the Constitution, nor is it in the Constitution and specifically prohibited by the states keep it. So this one's going to be interesting to watch as well. Although abortion only comes up, if you happen to be in that sort of a social position for that. So for me, it's a long step away, although I do have a daughter. So that would be interesting there. And then, of course, I've already talked about the January 6th obstruction cases. So those are the ones that are coming through, hopefully by the end of the term. The Supreme Court likes to issue opinions by the end of June, and we only have about a week and a half. Only about a week and a half left, if that. And so these are going to be coming out. I've heard that they are going to have a release this Wednesday. So hopefully Wednesday night, I will have some serious conversations to have with you folks about some of these cases. And depending upon how many cases they actually release, they could release all 6 of these at once, which would be sort of interesting. But we'll have to go and take a look and kind of see what's going on. Now, the one that I'm most interested in terms of the Trump cases, and this is the one in Florida dealing with the classified documents case. It's the one that a lot of people have been saying over and over has the most legal teeth in terms of doing something toward Trump. And it is the one that the left has been gnashing their teeth on since Eileen Cannon has been catching them and calling them out, especially Jack Smith, on all of the bullshit that he's been doing with regards to this. Now, she opened up the opportunity to, like Clarence Thomas had pointed out in the oral arguments for the Trump immunity case, I think, or maybe it was the January 6th case, one of those two, where Judge Clarence Thomas actually brought up the idea that Jack Smith might not have been constitutionally appointed. And this particular case, Eileen Cannon opened up the door and said, hey, we're gonna have a discussion about that. And we're going to see if that's actually the case. Now, what they are referring to is in your Constitution under Article 2, Section 2, Paragraph 2, it specifically talks about the presidential power to nominate, and I'm going to paraphrase from the kind of the middle of the paragraph, and he shall nominate and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States, whose appointments are not herein otherwise provided for, and which shall be established by law. And then it continues and says, but the Congress may by law vest the appointment of such inferior officers as they think proper in the president alone, and in the courts of law, or in the heads of departments. So here's the thing, is that what they're talking about is Jack Smith was and is an appointment to special counsel. And the argument being made by the Trump team is that the special counsel's office needs to be somebody who has gone through a Senate confirmation hearing. Now, the U.S. attorneys general, typically, the U.S. attorney general and all of the U.S. attorneys typically go through the Senate appointment process, which is why when, for an example, John Durham was appointed, he was already a U.S. attorney general. So he had already gone through the appointment process. and through Senate confirmation hearings. And so therefore, his appointment as special counsel complied with the U.S. Constitution. The problem is Jack Smith did not go through such appointments. And so the suggestion by the defense is that Jack Smith, because he hadn't gone through Senate hearings and got consent of the Senate, as per the Constitution, that his appointment is technically unconstitutional. And that was the exact same thing that Judge Clarence Thomas, or Justice Clarence Thomas, inferred to during his oral arguments. And so this is essentially the crux of the hearing, for the most part, the hearing, that if it falls and Eileen Cannon decides that, yes, Jack Smith's appointment was unconstitutional, that will ruin everything that Jack Smith is working on, including the stuff that's going on in D.C. with Trump's immunity, including any of the January 6th stuff that he was working on, including any other stuff that he's been working on as a special counsel. Now, there's two arguments that were made, and they've been stating their cases. And by the way, too, I read to you several episodes ago, I read to you the amicus brief, which an amicus brief is a brief filed on behalf of someone else in the lawsuit. And there was an amicus brief that was put forth for the Trump team by some very, very well-known scholars, legal scholars, former attorneys general and stuff like that. They all collaborated on this amicus brief, and they put it forth to the Supreme Court. And that amicus brief was supplied to Eileen Cannon, and she allowed it to be heard, which basically gave a much more lengthy and legal definition of what I pretty much just summarized in terms of the constitutionality of Jack Smith. Well, she held the hearing on Friday, and it continued to today. Today's hearing concentrated mostly on whether or not there was actually a budget created, and whether or not Congress, who holds the power of the purse, was in on it and had provided the legal ramifications for the budget that Jack Smith is operating under. And that is the second argument. So the first argument is that he's unconstitutional because he never went through the Senate confirmation hearings. The second argument is he doesn't have a Congress or a congressionally approved budget, and it's not part of anybody else's budget. So because of that, he's just basically got an open checkbook willy-nilly for his office, the office of the special counsel. And so they're asking questions. Now, if Eileen Cannon decides to say that, no, I think this is unconstitutional, I can guarantee you it will eventually end up in front of the Supreme Court. And honestly, I think there's arguments that could be made. And I honestly believe that there would be that there very well could be a situation where we may end up not being able to have independent special counsels that are not approved by the Senate ahead of time, which I think is where this is going to go, to be honest with you. But we're going to have to see. But that's essentially what's going on. And there's no indication as to when she's going to rule on this, when she's going to make her ruling. So that could come this week too. We could be looking at a huge week for legal opinions that will shape and twist the country back in what I think is the best direction in terms of all of this. I really do. I think this is that these cases are serious constitutional questions that should have been answered a long time ago. And actually have been kind of back and forth, because even Richard Nixon was questioning the special counsel for the whole Watergate scenario. And so, yeah, there's there's been questions on this office of the special counsel because it's not a permanent position. And this is one of the reasons why it's so questionable is that it is a independent position. It's not written by congressional statute either. It was what they're operating under right now is a executive directive for the Department of Justice for all of this. So there's not like a congressional law that says that, oh, we're going to create this office and, here's the budget and so on and so forth. It's not like, for an example, the creation of the IRS. It's running off of a regulation that was created by the Department of Justice, stating that the Attorney General has this power. Well, it's not, he doesn't have that power, especially if it's considered a principal office, because all the principal offices have to be nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate, according to the Constitution. So if he's in a principal office, then he's going to actually have a bit of an argument to make in front of the Supreme Court once this finally makes it up there. So, So anyway, those are some of the big things that are coming. Hopefully they're going to be decided this week. And once that does occur, I will probably have something to say about it. I'm hoping that they go our way. I really am. But yeah, we're just going to have to see. Okay, so switching gears a little bit once again, I want to talk to you a little bit about the economy in terms of the jobs report. So I kind of touched on this a few episodes ago, but now I actually have a graphic that was put together by Zero Hedge on X. If you are an X subscriber, that is one of the accounts that you absolutely should follow is Zero Hedge, ZeroHedge. And you should go and check them out because of the fact that Zero Hedge does a wonderful job. It looks like it's a picture of a woman, but then again, we can't account for that. But Zero Hedge, she does a good job going after some people. There's a bunch of independent journalists that are out there that are all doing this. But anyway, so the Biden economy has been analyzed by her, and she found something very interesting, which she put together into a graph. And that is all of these jobs, especially the ones in the last year. I can't say it's all of the jobs since Biden came into office, but most of the jobs, the majority of the jobs that have been taken in the past year have been taken by non-citizens. So let me show you this graph that she put together. Again, this is on X. And if you look at this graph, there's two lines. There's two squiggly lines. One of them is red. The other one is green. The red represents the native workers, and the green represents the foreign-born. Now, you can see in the graph the big, huge dip that represents the COVID event, and the loss, or they call them lost jobs, but they're actually just temporarily misplaced jobs, let's just say. And you can take a look at the graph and you can see that the native-born workers has pretty much returned to pre-pandemic levels. And there's a yellow dashed line that she went and put across the graph to kind of show that they've equaled off in terms of the native workers. So the native workers hasn't really increased at all. They've actually just been straight across, and, we're not really going up or down in terms of these job creation. But when you look at the foreign-born workers, the green line, The green line went from almost equal pre-pandemic to the native workers in terms of amounts. But now, after the pandemic and during the recovery during Joe Biden's administration, foreign-born workers has increased quite a bit, actually. If you haven't done so, you should head on over to rumble.com. I know they're having problems right now, but you should go and check out the video version of this and check all this out. But anyway, this is just a phenomenal graph that basically shows and demonstrates that we as a country, for the native-born workers, all these jobs that Joe Biden is supposedly creating are not going to the regular workers. They're going to foreign-born workers. And so, yeah, that's that's going to be a bit of a challenge. And honestly, this should be something that maybe Donald Trump could possibly hit on during the debate. That would be kind of interesting to see Joe Biden's reaction and how he would spin this in order to try and make this into some sort of a deal. So, yeah, I'm just telling you, this is going to be interesting to watch in terms of the debates. Now, switching to the international stage, I've told you multiple times that this China-Taiwan situation can put the entire world into a, pardon the pun, world of hurt. And China, for the longest time, has never really recognized Taiwan's independence. They've never really recognized the fact that Taiwan should be its own country. They've claimed that Taiwan is part of mainland China, and they have been for a very long time, but Taiwan has literally ignored that and has gone on and created their own economy. They've become the semiconductor design and manufacturing capital of the world, with over 90% of the products, the electronic products throughout the entire world, have some sort of Taiwan technology within them. And so the thing about this is that China has been upping the ante in terms of the exercises, let's say, to put it mildly, that have been going toward Taiwan and in the China-Taiwan Strait. And they've been caught with their ships crossing that middle zone and their planes crossing the middle zone. And so Taiwan has made a comment on multiple times that Taiwan has a right of self-defense. Well, here in American military news, China rejects Taiwan's right of self-defense claim. Now, the Chinese mainland deemed on Wednesday, this was last Wednesday, Taiwan's assertion of the right of self-defense if a mainland aircraft enters the island's space. And they're saying, no, you don't have the right of self-defense against us because of the fact that you aren't really separated from us. And Ku Ling Swing, I think is how that's pronounced, Taiwan's security chief, claimed recently that the island's military would be ordered to exercise the right of self-defense if the People's Liberation Army attacks aircraft, vessels, facilities, or enters without permission within 12 nautical miles of the island's territorial airspace and waters. For those of you that don't know, it is generally recognized by the Western world that 12 nautical miles is the part where anything water or air is considered outside of a particular country's owned waters. And so anything outside of that 12 nautical mile border is considered international waters or airspace, depending upon how that works. Shen Binhua, A spokesman for the State Council Taiwan Affairs Office said at a news conference in Beijing that Taiwan is an integral part of China. And where does their right of defense come from? Now, he criticized the Democratic Progressive Party authorities in Taiwan for drawing so-called lines and setting restrictions on the mainland's just actions to safeguard national sovereignty and territorial integrity, calling it an act of overestimation. They're still upping the ante. I'm telling you, folks, this is not a good position for the world, really. And, you know, Joe has put us into this situation because Joe is such a weak leader that he's lowered the standards across the board internationally for everyone. He has made it so that, you know, Iran is potentially close to, if they don't already have, a nuclear weapon. He supplied money for them to attack Israel through their through their third-party terrorist arm, from the Gaza Strip, the Hamas in the Gaza Strip. And so Joe Biden has just made the entire world unsafe. And this actually should give everyone a bit of an indication as to how much of the world police that we actually are. Because if our president, it basically demonstrates to the world that the police are gone. It's sort of like when they took off, or when the left has decided on the whole defund the police movement here in the U.S. and that they weren't going to prosecute what they considered low-level crimes. Yeah. We did that not only for America, but also for the world. The Democrats did that for all of us. So there's that. And that's just a bit of a mess there. All right. So one last thing that I'm going to point out to you, because Joe Biden was talking about the DACA recipients and how his executive order put out for the spouses of American citizens who were illegal aliens, and they came into this country illegally and then they married an American. He put out that executive order that allows them to now supposedly have amnesty, even though constitutionally I don't think he can do that. He hasn't been challenged on it yet, but then again, it is early. But he also keeps talking about DACA. And there's a certain thing, and there's a column that came out in PJ Media. Oops, wrong button. There's a column that came out in PJ Media that discusses what they won't tell us about the DACA recipients. And realistically, what they don't tell us is the fact that, according to a new report, nearly 80,000 DACA recipients allowed into the country had arrest records within 5 years. So, this was, according to a report in the New York Post, within 5 years of a new program created to prevent deportation of minors brought into the country illegally by their parents, nearly 80,000 were released into the U.S. with arrest records. The majority were between the ages of 19 and 22 when they were arrested, according to the latest available data published by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. So, yeah, apparently these people were bringing in, Trump was right. We're bringing in criminals. That's what's happening. America, all of these illegal aliens that are coming in, the vast majority of them appear to be criminals and are looking to just break the law. Well, hello, they're coming in here illegally. There's no respect for the law at all. So yeah, this is just absolutely horrible. This whole immigration thing is rests all completely on the Biden administration and Biden himself. So in the piece here, continuing with the report, 77,833 individuals had their DACA status denied or terminated, with 132 of these having an arrest record. Additionally, 67,861 DACA applicants with prior arrests were either approved or denied, and 15,903 approved recipients were later arrested. Yeah, these are really class act people that we're bringing in and trying to give amnesty to in the legal realm. All right, folks, sorry for the technical difficulties, but that puts us at the end of the program. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It's free. And once you've signed up, search up American Perspective, the American Perspective channel, and hit follow. Hopefully they'll get the technical bugs worked out in the near future. You can also follow me on Facebook, X, YouTube. I do transmit to YouTube, and I think those are all my video outlets. And then, of course, you can pick up the audio portion of the program on Spotify, iHeart, any other place that you, generally speaking, any other place that you pick up your podcasts. You can pick up the audio program there. We will see you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, just like tonight. And I will see you then. You guys have a great rest of your week, rest of your day, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.